Live. How's it going, all you amazing Mets fans? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with our latest live edition of a Big Mets Update segment. And very much similarity to our usual Mets Live news and rumors show that we do typically every single week on the platform. Today, it's going to be a lot of the same thing, but this time we're going to further break down the headlines, which is the Polar Bear Pete Alonso is back in Queens on a 2-year, $54 million deal. A lot more details has come out as to the build-up to this point, including some supposed secret meetings behind Alonso, Cohen, Stearns, and Boris. We'll get into those details. A lot of it coming courtesy of the New York Post, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit later in the show my segment with Dexter Henry with the New York Post today, breaking down more on the Alonso news and what this means for the Mets going forward. We're not only going to get into on the details on how the meetings went with Cohen, Stearns, Boris, Alonso, also what the Mets initially offered, which is maybe a little bit different than what maybe you thought in the public eye, as well as what is next for the Mets, because the Mets may still very well be in the market for a starting pitcher. And if they are, Dylan Cease is a guy that they've had plenty interest in and have been having negotiation to a certain extent with AJ Preller there and the Padres. We'll deep dive how the Mets' likelihood of landing a guy like Cease is potentially a little bit greater now today than what it was 48 hours ago. From there, we will also get into Mr. OMG himself and Jose Iglesias, how he rejected the Mets' latest contract offer, what was actually inaccurate from the initial reporting that we found out over this past day. That will reiterate for each and every one of you, and ultimately the likelihood unlikelihood of Jose returning the Mets, along with answering plenty of your comments, questions, and concerns on the live show. We had a tremendous time yesterday. We had live callers come on and our further reactions to the Pete Alonso news. And I would love to see your further Pete Alonso reactions tonight, everybody. But if you guys did not check out last night's live show reacting to the Alonso signing, or the two separate videos that we come out with since then, one being which on the Iglesias news initially rejecting the Mets contract offer, a little bit more on the Alonso situation, how David Stearns looks brilliant out of these negotiations, but also the video that dropped right around 5:30 p.m. Eastern today on how the Mets lineup truly looks lethal after Alonso has officially returned now. Check out all that content in case you guys haven't already. But folks, let's deep dive it all. But before I do, shout out to our amazing sponsor at BetUS, which has you covered with all your sports betting needs. But more on them later in the show, folks, because I want to do a quick roll call to everyone first chiming in live on a replay. I got Barry, I got User, I got BR, great member, Yoshima, great member, how are you? Vinny, Stony, great member, Swag and Burger, Jack, KT, Steve, great member, Jack going up the list here, Brad, Vernon, going up here a bit more, Daniel Bolden, longtime follower and supporter, love you Daniel, happy to have you in here, Jason, Gary, great member, Dave McKenna, Camille, New Yorker, how are you? Barry, how you doing? Everybody, come one, come all. Felix, Explosive, Malone. If I miss anyone's names, please know it's not personal, just because we're going to have hundreds of people watching live, then thousands of people watching the live show after the fact on replay. So naturally, I'm not going to get to everyone's comment right away, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to do my absolute best to get to each and every one of your comments as quick as I can and as frequent as I can throughout the live show here, folks. So give me 1 second as I make sure that we have every single thing set up here for tonight's show, and then we will continue to let this one roll. And thank you so much again for taking the time, everybody. Smash a like and subscribe on your way in case you guys haven't already, for the #1 platform for all things Mets news, rumors, in-game live streams, post-game live streams, all in-season and off-season long, folks. And we are just under 500 subscribers away from our next Mets jersey giveaway, folks. We gave away a Juan Soto Mets jersey when we hit 30,000 subscribers over the past month and a half. We just gave away a Juan Soto Mets shirt jersey when we hit 31K, and now we're giving away another Mets jersey of whatever player you want that's on the active roster right now to one lucky subscriber. And all you guys got to do to enter is to make sure you're subscribed, and once we hit 32,000 subscribers, probably a week after that point or so, and a live stream, I'll let you guys know I'll be picking a winner, and hopefully it's one of you lucky guys watching the show right here, right now. But let's get into some of these comments, everybody, and then let's deep dive all the latest reporting here. I'm going to read again word for word some of the key articles that came out today from the New York Post, because I don't want to just nitpick some key notes. I really just want to deep dive the entire things, because a lot of information came out today on the buildup of the Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Scott Boras, Pete Alonso negotiation. Yoshima, great member that we see here, 48 months. Haram, great member, how are you? But Yoshima says, couldn't join yesterday, but we got the repeat. Oh, love the wordplay there, Yoshima. Absolutely. absolutely, baby. And Yoshima says, now let's go get an ace as it's officially our year. Absolutely, baby. BR, great member. Happy to have you in here. Stony as well. Come one, come all. Thank you so much. We got my guy, Jack Palmero, great member as well. We got Jeremy with the $5 house saying, putting my GM cap on, this will take filler prospects plus cash on top of this, but Marte for Adrian Moreno, Morone, and Beatty for Torque. Thoughts? I would love that deal, Marte for Adrian, but I don't see it. I don't see why the Padres would do that, honestly. It makes less. If the Mets are going to do a trade with a team like the Padres, I'd envision that hopefully a starter like Dylan Cease that we're going to break down tonight is a big reason as to why. Beatty for Torque, I would absolutely be in favor of, but how much do the Tigers have an emphasis on something like that, right? Beatty fits more of a positional need for them at the moment, but Torque has also proven a lot more at the major league level between the two guys. So I could see it taking a little bit more than Beatty, but I would certainly be willing to do that for the Mets case. That way they have backup beyond Alonso, as well as a guy that maybe they can really rotate into more of a true DH type with them for the time being, as he's still ramping up his young game at the age of 25. And Spencer Torkel said, we can talk more on Torque throughout the live show later on, guys. Just make sure you remind me in the chat, and I appreciate that. What kind of reliever could Marte get us? It's hard to envision the Mets getting any kind of reliever for Marte at this point in time. I'm sorry to burst some of your bubbles, but that ship has essentially sailed after the Mets settle with Jesse Winker, pretty much solidifying that their DH, barring changes, will be a platoon of a Jesse Winker and Starling Marte type. After not signing Jock Pearson, after not signing Teoscar Hernandez, after not signing Anthony Santander, the Mets made it abundantly clear that they were going to go with this platoon version of their DH yet again, but this time with a lot more upside than the nasty platoon of Tyler Naquin, Darren Ruff, what we have there, Daniel Vogelbach, and in the early goings of the DH when it first became universal, JD Davis and Dom Smith. Whoop the effing do. I mean, I'm certainly taking an upgrade on Marte and Jesse Winker every day of the week for Jesse to face mainly right-handed pitchers and for Marte to face mainly left-handed pitchers. I think that's going to work out beautifully in the end here. But let me get to some of your other comments here, folks, and then we'll get into it. Jack, likewise, my friend, thank you so much for calling in. Emerson, how are you? Mike Nixon, great moderator and member here. Barry, hope you're doing well. Again, thank you guys for the donations and for the kind words. We had an absolute blast last night in our live show, the same way we are going to right here, right now, folks. So let's get into first breaking down all the stuff that's going on right now. Not so much with Dylan Cease. We'll circle back to Dylan, but we're going to have a semi-elongated discussion here on all the Alonso stuff. So let's start with this, everybody. We're going to read, again, word for word, some of these pieces that have come out from the New York Post, and we're going to actually start here. Steve Cohen needed the Pete Alonso reunion to happen. So we're actually going to go a little bit back farther here. Not only that, but we're also going to get into one other key piece. We have some other clips that I want to share with you guys. But first, we see inside the Pete Alonso, Steve Cohen sit down that brought Slugger back to the Mets. This was broken by Mike Puma of the New York Post earlier today. I suggest you guys check it out in case you guys haven't gotten a chance to already. But we're going to first deep dive these articles because most, if not all of them, have a paywall. But don't worry, Wardy's got you covered as we're just going to read and break them down together here so we can live react together. And this dropped earlier today, right around 2 p.m. Eastern. So, in this article from Puma, it is broken down in the following. In the end, it was an old-fashioned sit-down between the principals that helped finish the deal that brought Pete Alonso back to the Mets. On Tuesday, team owner Steve Cohen flew to Tampa, where Alonso resides, and alongside with President of Baseball Operations David Stearns, met with Alonso and Boris's camp, Scott Boras. For about 3 hours, the group convened at Stovall House, a social club to which Alonso belongs. A day later, Alonso agreed to a 2-year contract worth $54 million for a return to the Mets. The deal includes that opt-out after the first year and that $10 million signing bonus, pretty much having it right around $30 million of AAV. Alonso, according to sources, had not spoken directly with Cohen during his free agent prior to the meeting in Tampa, so this was the first time that they really got to be face-to-face, and Steve was able to be brutally honest about how he's felt, and Alonso was able to be honest about maybe how he's felt a little slighted on how the Mets have negotiated or lack thereof with him so far this offseason. The sit-down served the purpose of Cohen and Stearns assuring that the slugger that he was still wanted while providing their perspective. Cohen and Stearns listened as Alonso outlined his frustrations of not receiving the type of offer from the Mets, as we alluded to over the past month and a half. Obviously, Alonso was frustrated by this, but it's not like the market was in his favor, unfortunately, for his sake, given his productivity and what he meant to the organization that he believed he deserved. Cohen told Alonso that it wasn't the first baseman's fault. Cohen made it clear to Alonso that the system was in large part responsible, as the player receiving a qualifying offer for the season, Alonso had a draft pick compensation attached to him, limiting his market right there. Teams are in general reluctant to surrender a draft pick for a 30-year-old player, especially one on the bridge contract who might opt out early in the deal, which is 1,000% valid. Alonso cannot receive another qualifying offer, leaving him unshackled to shoot for a larger payday as soon as next offseason should he decide to opt out. Also working against Alonso this winter was the fact that he produced a career-low sub-800 OPS last season that we've alluded to plenty on the platform, and Alonso's 34 home runs were also his lowest total for a full season. Finally, Cohen, as a measure of respect for Alonso and an attempt to finalize the deal, raised the offer in terms of average annual value for the 2-year deal. The $30 million AAV that Alonso received this season is the highest in the game for a first baseman. So Alonso gets the highest AAV, but does not get the term. I think that is a blessing for both sides, more favorably the Mets and David Stearns, and obviously Cohen. The Mets had initially offered $85 million across 3 years, but with heavy deferrals in that deal, they lowered it to a present-day value of $71 million across 3 years, which we heard in the public eye a couple weeks ago, including an opt-out after the first and or second season. The in-person meeting for Mets brass served the purpose of trying to ensure that Alonso would arrive at spring training with a healthy mindset, excited about returning to the team. At the team's fan fest almost 2 weeks ago, Cohen had called the negotiations between the two sides, and I quote, exhausting. Even more so that the talks for Boris's client Juan Soto, who in December signed with the Mets on a record 15-year contract worth $765 million. Alonso, according to sources, expressed his excitement during his meeting with Cohen and Stearns about hitting in the same lineup with Soto. There is a level of expectation that Soto will hit ahead of Alonso in the lineup, as we alluded to all along. Alonso will be batting fourth more than likely. Soto will be batting second or third. Wouldn't shock me if he's batting third, nor would it shock me if he's batting second there, right behind Lindor there. It's really about what they do with Nimmo. If they want to bat Nimmo behind Alonso or in front of him, I think that's the biggest question that people have debated so far. And Soto will bat in front of Alonso, as we said, and really take things from there, folks. So that was the first piece that came out from the New York Post earlier today. A strong read there. Shout out to Mike Puma. Appreciate the coverage. He continues to do a fantastic job there for the New York Post. But I do want to pivot right into the other article that this time came out from John Heyman today of the New York Post, talking a bit more on Steve Cohen's thoughts and his actual quotes on this negotiation process that he just got over the past 2 hours at the time of going live here right now. From there, we will talk more on the Dylan Cease aspect of things, and ultimately how the Mets may be able to certainly not pivot, but now focus in that area after bringing Alonso back on 2 years, $54 million. And Mets fans, a great question they have for each and every one of you watching live and on replay is the following. How would you grade the Mets offseason at this point? Because for me personally, it's hard to not give the Mets anything short of an absolute A. The only reason why I'm not going A+ is because you can always do better, right? You can always make more moves. I think you're still one starter short from me being like, oh my goodness gracious, I just am absolutely floored. But what a tremendous offseason it's been for Steve Cohen and the Mets by all accounts. Helping rectify and fortify the bullpen, feeling more confident about it heading into the season versus what we did a year ago. Same thing with the rotation by all accounts, but hopefully Senga healthy and back. Just want to add a little bit more there, but I would love to see your grades on how the Mets offseason has went to this point, and with the idea that they're not even done making moves, that makes it all the more exciting. Manuel with the $5 holla, thank you so much. He says, and your thoughts, what would it take for Acuna to play knowing McNeil is here? Or is center field possible? I don't see Acuna getting center field reps. I just don't see that's going to happen. I think he's destined to stay in the infield. And I think Acuna is going to split time is what I think is going to happen. Depending on the status of Jose Iglesias and if the Mets bring him back or not, we'll also go in hand with Acuna's ability and cracking the roster right away for the Mets and splitting time with McNeil based on matchups, or if he's going to start the year outright in AAA. Some fans don't like the idea of having Acuna in a utility role, while others understand that in a win-now stage, it's easier said than done to guarantee guaranteeing a role to Acuna, whereas maybe he can kind of deserve it more should McNeil have a slow start to the season, which would absolutely favor Acuna's ability to slot in not long after that slow start by McNeil and hopefully win that job and never look back. So we'll see what happens on the Acuna front, but I'm looking forward to watching him in person in spring training this year in the coming weeks when I'm attending right around sometime in March. Be on the lookout for that, folks, but also just to see how much he can build off of what was a very strong limited campaign, but a very strong one after having an underwhelming minor league season. Acuna goes from being, not even really viewed as a top 100 prospect to some, to then breaking out big time for the Mets when Lindor goes down with injury, and the rest is history. All right, everybody. Now let's go on to the next piece here, and this, as I alluded to earlier, just dropped from Jon Heyman over the past hour or two, and it says Steve Cohen needed the Pete Alonso Mets reunion to happen. So we're going to read up as to what exactly the key details are in this one. As I'm reading them, I'm going to run some highlights for you guys because I know you guys love to watch Pete Alonso home runs as I talk about Pete Alonso. I think that's a lot more digestible when we talk about Alonso than anything else. At least it is for me. I like to have all the graphics and all the fun stuff running at the same time here. So let's pull up the stats there. And the contract, again, is 2 years, $54 million. Ignore how the graphic says that he's a free agent. That's just because I've had that stat bar set up for him all off season long. But as we get now into this piece from Jon Heyman that came out a little bit earlier, it states the following, everybody. Mets owner Steve Cohen suggested the secret sit-down with Pete Alonso in Tampa on Tuesday, and what may have been the breakthrough the sides needed. So, all right, guys, as much as this is absolutely a David Stearns masterclass and how he negotiated and how the process went throughout the offseason, Steve Cohen yet again was the man being the difference maker, being such an anomaly of an owner in negotiations where he is not hurting things the way that Artie Moreno always certainly does. But no, not the case here. Again, Steve was the man who suggested the secret sit down this past Tuesday with Alonso in Tampa. He said the following, and I quote to Jon Heyman of the New York Post. I really want to humanize the negotiations, Cohen said and told the Post. I wanted him to hear it straight from me. Two human beings having a real conversation. And that is a difference maker. That is by moving all the fluff aside with the Scott Boras nonsense on having to have this public negotiation go back and forth. Move him aside and just look at Pete Alonso in the eyes and say, Pete, we would love you back, but the market is what it is. And unfortunately, the qualifying offer being declined by yourself did not favor yourself in the marketability of yourself as a player either. This is what it is. Again, we would love to have you back, and this is what we are willing to offer. So I think Alonso hearing that straight up and more honest, but showing the still intrigue and interest in how much Stearns and Cohen wanted Alonso back still to pair with Soto was further proof of how great Cohen, Stearns, and this entire Mets brass have done on the hospitality aspect. They made Alonso, who otherwise did not feel great about these negotiations, who felt slighted and was frustrated that he voiced to Cohen and Stearns for things to come full circle to him to be happy and excited in the end to ink this deal, to get it finally done, and now to be added into this lineup of Juan Soto is nothing short of, in my opinion, a fantastic thing. So, guys, let's see more. And Leo, shout out to you, great member. Appreciate you, and thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate that. I hope you're having a great time. And DR, baby, absolutely love to see that. Pick up Vladdy while you're at it, baby. But all right, getting back into this one, we see the following. So they hashed it out after hours of, So they hashed it out for hours at Alonso's club. Mets president, baseball ops, David Stearns, and Alonso's agent, Scott Boras, and Mike Fiore also attended. They talked analytics and biomechanics and bat speed. Alonso scores well in the latter too, but the main thing Cohen wanted to hear is that Alonso wanted to be back, and the thing is he wanted to convey that he wanted Alonso back, simply put. This was such a difficult, extended negotiation process, and Cohen joked that the Juan Soto talks, which included 3 bidding rounds and resulted in a record $765 million, were a walk in the park in comparison. This was straight talk for a tough 12-week battle, perhaps facilitating the $54 million 2-year deal. And I quote, I was clear, Cohen said. I told him, I want you back. We want you back. Straight from the horse's mouth and Steve Cohen. And Alonso told Cohen he'd like the same thing. Alonso could have opted to go to the Blue Jays in a market limited by the qualifying offer draft pick attachment. However, word is he not only likes it here, but loves a chance to bat behind Soto. Color me shocked. It's almost like Pete Alonso knows that being back home is the best place to be for him, even on the short-term end. Thank you so much, Kish, for the 5 gifted. Guys, we see Gonzalez, Barry, Alex, Fire Blazing, Thomas. You get a membership. You get a membership. You get a membership. You get a membership. Thank you so much, Kish, for that. It's beyond generous. Really does mean a lot. I did love that Jose Reyes interview there on Baseball Night at NY. It was perfect timing. He's like, Pete, we got to have you back. And then Pete comes back. Jose was very happy about that, and that's a great SNY panel debut there by the former Mets infielder. Leo, again, thank you for the kind words earlier. Appreciate that. I hope Pete is better. I hope Pete is feeling better, said Cohen. I know he's excited about being part of this team, the team he grew up with, Cohen said. Then we also see here, he's a really good guy. He loves New York, and he loves his teammates, the owner said. This is a good thing. This needed to happen. Quite the contrary from my guy Salicata, who just said 72 hours ago why the Mets and Steve Cohen and Pete Alonso should not rekindle the relationship, that it's been too brutal of a negotiation process and that the sides should just split. No one was believing that nonsense for a second, but what we are believing was the foregone conclusion, the inevitable reality that we all expected, which was Pete Alonso circling back to the Mets. Even with Steve Cohen being the one to on the forefront of these negotiations, the one to say, hey, listen, let's just get a sit down. Let's talk face to face. I know you're frustrated. I don't want Boris to make you think anything worse than what you already do. Let me tell you straight from me how I feel and why we are negotiating the way that we are. That's the best way to go about it. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David. And what was a very, very, very strong negotiation process and standing firm and not breaking from holding your ground. I firmly believe that this was the Billy Epler regime, everybody, and maybe I'm wrong, but I firmly believe that if this was the Billy Epler regime, Pete Alonso would have signed with the Mets already on a 6-7-year deal separately from the initial extension that he offered. The reason why I say that is I think Epler would have had more of a willingness and more of a desperation to go there on the long-term front for homegrown talents. If Jeff McNeil's multi-year deal wasn't a great example of exactly that, I don't know what is. And Sanders, I do like them for sure. Oh, 100% Keto. And there's obviously question marks with Kodai Senga this season. As much as we don't want to say that, there still is until we see him really locked in and playing the full 162. Daniel, my man, ESPN New York Radio said Griffin Canning is in the bullpen. If they're right, we need another starter. Well, here's the thing. The Mets rotation right now is as follows. Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Frankie Montas, Clay Holmes. Am I missing someone? Clay Holmes, and then Paul Blackburn or Tyler McGill as your number 6. Why do I feel like I'm missing someone? Hold on. Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Stearns, Frankie Montas. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so your 6th starter right now is Tyler McGill or Paul Blackburn. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we are a starter short still. I think we're one more quality starter short. Bring back Quintana. Funny enough, it's something that I've been mentioning more because as Quintana has yet to sign with a team, he's a guy that I also could see the Mets just circling back to and be like, all right, let's take you in for at least the first half of the season and then try to acquire more pitching at the trade deadline should Dylan Cease have been too expensive to this point. And we're going to get some more on Dylan Cease here shortly, everybody. Overall, I worry about sufficient innings from our staff. Barry, I'm not overly worried. I think they're going to find a way, but I think it's going to come in more creative ways than what maybe you're initially thinking at this point in time. Did I say David Stearns as a starter? That's hilarious if I did. Who is the most underappreciated player on the roster right now? That's a great question. I'll answer that quick before we pivot into talking more on Cease here. Most underappreciated guy on the roster right now. Think I'm going to go with Yeah, I'm going to say it. Maybe this is crazy for me to say, but I'm going to say it. David Pearson. I think David Pearson still gets slept on unbelievably heavily for a guy that might have the highest upside out of this entire rotation staff this year. David Pearson was a dog last season, dude. Coming back from his hip surgery, in which he began the regular season right around in the early to mid-June, he was an animal. Like, he was literally a top 3 starter that would go for most rotations of Major League Baseball pretty much all summer long for the Mets. Peterson was nails. He also gave us some of our only quality games that we saw starter-wise in Milwaukee, too, which was huge. David Pearson, I think, doesn't get nearly enough attention that he deserves for a guy who, for the ebbs and flows that he's had, the ups and the downs since really blossoming as a New York Met when he got called up from Double-A all the way to the majors in the shortened 2020 season. I remember his debut against the Red Sox like it was yesterday at Fenway. And since then, Pearson has kind of fallen in that Tyler McGill category to a degree, where you're trying to figure out what is best for him. Is he going to be a true starter in this rotation? Is he going to be on the outside looking in? What is his role going to be? But I think for what David Pearson has given us the past and multiple seasons now, he's not only deserving of being a clear number 3, number 4 in this rotation, if not higher, but a guy that has upside of being an ace caliber starter when at his absolute best. I'm actually going to pivot briefly here just to take a quick peek at David Pearson's numbers here, and then we'll talk more on Dylan Cease, guys, because, like I said, just such an underrated player, I think. I think a lot of fans could attest to that. Ryan, great member of 7 months. Ryan says, cheers, Wardy. Cheers, Mets fans, to a great year. Absolutely, my man. Thank you so much for the kind words there. Appreciate you and appreciate your membership. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button on your way in. Help us get a 350 to 400 plus likes, whether you're watching live on a replay. It's greatly appreciated. And thank you guys so much in advance for doing exactly that. Cameron with the $5 hollow says, did you read Manfred's comments today about the owners pushing a cap? Better enjoy baseball while it's here. I mean, yes. Nonsense. I mean, don't get me started. I'm not going to elaborate too much on Manfred's comments today. I'm going to worry about them more when we should worry about them. But yeah, I'm not happy not only about that, but obviously on the kissing of the derrieres, if you will, when it comes to the LA Dodgers, which I'm not shocked to hear at all. But David Pearson, guys, who now is already entering his age 29 season. That's crazy. The towering 6'6" lefty. David Pearson, what's so fascinating about him too is that the guy does not have the expected numbers in his favor. Peterson has been what you could honestly say one of the more lucky starters, but it works. It for one reason or another, it works. Peterson had back-to-back seasons with the Mets with over a 10 strikeout per 9, so right around a 4 walks per 9. In 2022, in 28 games and 19 starts, he did that to a 3.8 ERA and a 3.9 expected ERA. Then we see in 2023 for Peterson in 111 games, just 10.4 K per 9, a 4 walks per 9, a 5-year ERA, and a just under 5 expected ERA. Now, the crazy thing is that his expected numbers didn't change all that much in the expected ERA in 2024. It sits at a 4.59, but David Pearson posted a 2.9 ERA for the Mets in 2025, and with his Arsenal adjustments, when completely down on the K per 9, no longer that strikeout pitcher that we were kind of expecting him to be, but what was Pearson instead? A tremendous, again, Houdini-esque save artist by getting out of his own messes, getting out of those jams with some great ground balls there to Francisco Lindor to help turn a double play, or some key flyouts there. We saw a 7.5 K per 9 to a 3.4 walks per 9 and a 0.6 home run per 9. Far and away the best home run per 9 rate that we've seen in his career there for David Pearson, and that's what he's looking to build off of. Again, had a lady luck on his side for sure. That Mets infield defense helped him a lot last season because the expected numbers aren't as favorable to him, but a 3.67 FIP is respectable as well. Pearson's looking for hopefully a bigger and even better year in 2025 for the Mets, and what he's projected to get through these rough projections for Fangraphs has him pretty much getting around, what you'd expect, a 3.7 to 4 ERA, right around anywhere from 135 to 150 innings. The K per 9 is expected to go up by pretty much a full strikeout, right around 8.5K per nine to a walks per nine right around 3.5. So I would gladly take that with a home run rate sub 1. If those come to fruition on the projections, I would not be opposed to that at all. And that's what we got from David Pearson here in 2025. And I think that there's potential for him to do better than what those projections are suggesting that he'll do. Pearson will win 15 games. That'll be awesome if that happens, Gonzalez. Thank you so much for the donation, great member. We appreciate you greatly. Thank you kindly for that. All right, guys, now let's talk about from one exciting younger starter at the age of 29 to another. Now going from David Pearson, let's talk about the man that we would love to see in this rotation, and that's going to be Mr. Dylan Cease. And we're going to go back to the articles here because we did see a piece drop earlier today that came courtesy of Joel Sherman of the New York Post. And I'm going to run some Dylan Cease highlights for you as we break down word for word this piece from Joel Sherman and what he had to say on the potential of landing a guy like Dylan Cease now that Pete Alonso is back in the fold for the Mets. And guys, just in case you're wondering, the title of the article is Pete Alonso Deal Opens Up Intriguing Trade Possibility for Mets by Joel Sherman. After being at polar opposites for most of this offseason to create a bear market for Pete Alonso, the Mets and their star reunited by reaching agreement Wednesday on a 2-year, $54 million contract that will enable the slugger to opt out after the 2025 season if he wants. That leads to this question. Now what? Number one, the simplest answer is that the Mets could be done, but in the aftermath of this impact, I did begin to wonder about the implications. The Mets could be back in the situation next offseason if Alonso returns in free agency. But if... Apologies, folks. Tickle my throat here. But it does give them at least another season of Alonso at first, Vientos at third, which turns Acuna, Beatty, Mauricio, among others, from competing at the hot corner job to either bench pieces or the Syracuse Mets, since either of which they all have minor league options, at least one more each. Or does that trio become even more prominent as a trade chip? The Mets could believe that next year that the next wave of infield prospects, notably Jesus Baez, who has some of the most ridiculous raw power in the organization, Boston Barrow, and Jet Williams could become more prominent and make a piece or two from Acuna, Beatty, Mauricio easier to part with, even if Alonso leaves in a year and Vientos actually shifted to first base. All three, and this is the new news on the front of Dylan Cease, as well as how the Mets have actually talked about these prospects this offseason. When talking about Acuna, Beatty, and Mauricio in particular, listen up, folks. The Mets discussed all three players and their trade negotiations with the White Sox for Garrett Crochet earlier this offseason before he ultimately landed with the Red Sox. Furthermore, around this time, the Mets also had talked with the Padres about Dylan Cease, and Luis Angel Acuna presumably was that key player that was brought up in said conversation, as he's a guy that could potentially be a starting shortstop for the Padres as soon as this year for them, and he has a lot of upside and obviously would be a needle mover in a big trade for a rental starter like a Cease, or to a lesser extent like a Kane there. The Mets were also talking there on the case of Dylan Cease. The Padres have not fully shown amid their ownership crisis if they have to cut payroll, but Cease, who's due for roughly $14 million in 2025, would be an obvious choice to move if reductions are ordered because of his looming free agency, which is what many are assuming in the industry at this point in time. Cease has commonality where Corbin Burns was when he was traded by Milwaukee to Baltimore in 2023 season. While he is overall more accomplished than Cease, Burns entered his walk year having in the same 3 seasons, just 3 seasons before his age 26 to 28 years, accumulated 13.1 WAR, wins above replacement, at least through Baseball Reference there. Baseball Reference WAR, not Fangraphs. Over 562 and 2/3 innings with a 30.3 strikeout percentage. In his past 3 years, ages 26 to 28, Cease has a 13 flat WAR and 550 innings or so with a 29% strikeout rate and a 1.22 ERA plus minus. So ERA plus, for those who are unaware, is pretty much grading on a scale of 100 how good is a pitcher. If you're above 100, you're above league average. If you're below 100, you're below league average. The same accounts for WRC plus, especially through Fangraphs. So when looking at Dylan Cease, if he was 22% above, that means he was 22% above the league average pitcher last season. That was the case with Dylan Cease. Again, Burnes was viewed as better, but Cease is that Venn diagram. And for Burnes, Baltimore traded an infielder who was in the back end of the top 100 in prospects, Joey Ortiz, an upside play pitcher in DL Hall. So does Beatty and David Pearson equate to that, or Mauricio and Tyler McGill? Something in that realm. Would Williams have to be the infielder used? Is Cease even actually available? Will he or others be available in July when Acuna, Beatty, Mauricio could continue to be available? All great questions, and obviously if Cease isn't traded now, a greater reality that it could be at the traded line if the Padres find themselves selling to a degree. 2, Steve Cohen had insisted the Mets had a budget this offseason and that the chances to retain Alonso were dwindling, but the Mets owner has shown he will do anything financially. He will do financially what he must do to help the team, what he wants to remember. Even with a record payroll swelling after the 2022 season, he was willing to agree to a $350 million contract with Carlos Correa because he felt that the one more piece his club needed. Correa failed to do the physical, and we know how that went, obviously. You get the point. If Cease or someone else appeals to Cohen, is it really stopping? No. Is he really stopping? No. At the moment, the Mets payroll is about $326 million projected, is down about $20 million from last season. But the Alonso contract did, for luxury tax purposes, put them $25 million over the highest threshold, the so-called Steve Cohen tax, as we know. The average value of Alonso's contract at $27 million is what counts toward the payroll. But because the Mets will be paying Alonso $30 million this year, if he opts out after 2025, they have to balance that out and would be charged $3 million toward their payroll next year, even with Alonso gone. At the moment, the Mets are looking at a tax bill of $67 million after paying $97 million last year and $101 million the year before that. That could drop if, for example, part of the plan to retain Alonso included trading as much as possible the $19.5 million owed to Starling Marte looks reduced to the right side of the DH platoon with Jesse Winker. I don't see Marte getting dealt, but we'll see if that happens from now up until opening day. The Mets won this negotiation. 3. The Mets won this negotiation by being patient and limiting Alonso to 2 years. But the result of landing Juan Soto and retaining Alonso is they will not have the defense that Stearns wants to gravitate toward with Soto and right, Alonso at first, and Vientos at third. All are a little better than their defensive reputations, but still not higher end. And that's 100% true. What Alonso and Soto do bring that is not discussed often is durability. Since Alonso broke out in MLB in 2019, he has played the second most games, 846, and Soto has the 7th most at 820, while Francisco Lindor is tied for 16th with 801. And that was the latest piece there by Joel Sherman. Great job by the New York Post today, guys. Again, highly suggest you guys to check out all the latest on the Post. But for Dylan Cease and for the Mets, if the Mets can pull off a trade without Luis Angel Acuna involved, that'd be amazing. But Pat Regazzo alluded to in the media over the past couple of days, the Padres are asking for 3 top 25 prospects for Cease. So I don't see a world where the Mets could acquire a guy like Dylan without having to give up a Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna type player, and potentially a solid prospect or a pitcher of control like a Jose Butto, maybe a Tyler McGill, maybe a Paul Blackburn, but I'm sure Butto would be appealing to a certain degree. So I definitely want to know your thoughts on that, everybody. But before we talk a little bit more on Cease and on what is potentially next for the Mets this offseason, I do just want to elaborate a little bit more on the New York Post, everybody. And I've been having an absolute blast getting to do coverage with them. As many of you guys have seen the work that I've done with guys like Brendan London, as well as also Dexter Henry. And I had the privilege of talking with Dexter today for the first time since right before we found out who was going to win the Juan Soto negotiations. So here is my segment earlier today to share with each and every one of you on how it went there with the New York Post.
Wednesday night, Pete Alonso and the Metropolitans, they agreed on the Mets. They've got their first baseman back on Wednesday night. Pete Alonso and the Metropolitans, they agreed on a 2-year deal that will guarantee the first baseman $54 million. So let's talk about the deal and the offseason for the Amazings. We're going to do it with the great Mets content creator, Tyler Ward, who joins me now. Wardy, what's going on?
Dexter, how are you, my friend? Last time we spoke, we did not know what the future of Alonso was going to be and
Yeah.
what was happening there with Juan Soto still. Come to find out, they're both in Queens. Feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, a lot has changed since the last time that we talked. You're feeling pretty good, and I'm going to get into the feelings. First off, what was your reaction to this deal, Wardy? And how do you think Mets fans are feeling today? I assume pretty good, but what was your reaction when you first heard this deal on Wednesday night?
I think my reaction was the same as everyone else. They stopped what they were doing. They want to either cover it or have themselves in the setting where they're watching someone cover it. And I think more than anything, everyone was relieved at the end of the day, right? For me personally, I fully expected Alonso to find himself back with the Mets, and we'll expand on that in a second. But for the Mets and for the fans, this was something that felt vital. It felt like the Mets were a Pete Alonso piece away. So to finally have him back after what was an exhausting negotiation, as their owner Steve Cohen said it himself, is telling of just how much the Mets still wanted Alonso back in the end, and how much the fans certainly knew how important it was to bring back Alonso for at least the 2025 season.
Oh, it was absolutely important. You know, the fans wanted him back. I know you wanted him back. But whenever it comes to talking about trades, right, Wardy, we got to have grades, right? We have to have a winner and a loser. What grade would you give this deal, both for the Mets and for Alonso?
Okay, so for the Mets, I'm going to give them an easy A, and that's all thanks to David Stearns and Steve Cohen. Steve sat back in these negotiations and let David Stearns do what he hired him to do when Steve Cohen initially wanted to hire the guy. I would just like to preface at this point in time, I was unaware that Steve Cohen had been the one to suggest, hey, let's have that final sit down face to face with Alonso and Boris. So while Stearns was the man who spearheaded the negotiations throughout all the negotiations, which made the Mets not go beyond that 3-year hard line in the sand, it was Cohen being that difference maker to get that face to face finally done. Not to say that wouldn't have happened regardless, but I just want to put that out there. I did not know that at the point of time of recording this, because this happened right around 10 a.m. this morning, and the reporting didn't come out until like 2 p.m. earliest, if I'm not mistaken, when he first became owner 4+ years ago. Fast forward to present day, David Stearns, after a great year one with the Mets as president of baseball operations, was fully leading the charge here in these negotiations against Scott Boras and Pete Alonso. The Mets were always like, hey, we would love to have you back, Pete, but at our price point, and they never deviated beyond 3 years, while Alonso started at 6+. So that's an easy A for the Mets on that standpoint of things. And for Steve Cohen, pardon me, not Steve Cohen, Pete Alonso, I have to give Pete an absolute best to see here. I feel like if you're Alonso, you shot yourself in the foot a little bit. You know, you bet on yourself in a make or break 2024 year after denying them that 7-year, $158 million extension or so. This was before you even hired Scott Boras, mind you. Now he has to land on a 1-year guarantee of $30 million, but with a lot more uncertainty. It helps out Alonso in the short term to hit the free agent market still in his prime a year from now, should he wish. But at the same time, he could have found himself with more of a long-standing term where he otherwise is not going to get from everyone else that we saw in the free agent market this past offseason.
All right, so A for the Mets, a C for Alonso, and we probably will likely have to revisit this again next offseason, but a good deal for the Mets. Now, the other part of this, Tyler, is the fact that the Mets, this helps their lineup, obviously, right? How crucial is it that the Mets now have protection for Juan Soto in their lineup?
Oh, I think it's massive, right? Because the early projections heading into the season per Pagoda, among others, Pagoda, I should say, is that the Mets are deemed to have one of the best offenses in all Major League Baseball, scoring at least a projected 700 runs, only trailing teams like the Dodgers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So now that you're bringing Alonso into the fold with Juan Soto in front of him, with Francisco Lindor in front of him, with Nemo Vientos, Alvarez, and everyone else in company right around here, this is the deepest, most hardiest lineup that we have seen Alonso ever be a part of. This is the deepest lineup that I've ever been a part of as a fan of witness live in real time. And to have Juan Soto not only in Queens for the next 15 years, but to have a guy like the Polar River batting behind him is going to lead to tremendous success for this Mets team throughout the course of the 162.
All right, so this sounds to me, when I hear all that, a lot of excitement heading into spring training with this Mets team. So I'm going to go with somewhat of an early prediction time here for you, Wardy. How do you see the Mets stacking up to the rest of the league as they head into spring training?
Yeah, as things currently stand now that Alonso's back in the fold, I think right now the Mets have arguably the second best offense in all the National League, if not third. I think they are right in that three-headed monster of a mix between themselves, the Dodgers, and the Braves. And this is not to discredit the Phillies, the Padres, and other fantastic teams coming out of the National League. But when you look at the lineup configuration, the Mets having 6 to 7 batters of quality in this lineup that can give you 25 plus home runs, and I'm going to bunch in Winker and Marte together there at the DH position, and Alvarez bounce back here feels inevitable. All these reasons are why I feel as confident as I do in the Mets. And out of the National League against some of their big foes, they have as great of a chance as ever to go toe-to-toe and at least get back to where they were this past season, just a couple games shy of the dance against the Yankees.
All right, exciting times for the New York Mets. They got their first baseman back.
Shout out to Dexter Henry for having me on. Shout out to everyone there at the New York Post. They continue to do great coverage over there, not only for the Mets, the Yankees, but all things New York sports there. And shout out also to my guy, Jake Brown, radio in the chat. Appreciate you being in here, Jake. Jake, I will get back to you, if not tonight, this certainly tomorrow there regarding the weekend, brother. And happy birthday again for those that don't know our guy, Jake, who's an other awesome, not only Mets talking head, but also now is going to be writing as part of the group with Pat Ragazzo on the beat for the Mets, an affiliate with Sports Illustrated. So congratulations with that, Jake. But it was just his birthday the past couple days. So congratulations again to Jake. Hope you had a awesome and blessed birthday. And regardless of what happens this weekend, I hope you have an absolute blast of a time. But guys, let's now get into a little bit more here. First, again, hope you guys enjoyed the segment. Check that out. We'll be doing plenty more with them throughout the course of the year. But secondly, you know, kind of the further reaction that I just want to make note of from the Alonso news was just how much it felt reassuring in similarity to the Juan Soto negotiation. What felt like a foregone conclusion, what felt like we all saw the writing on the wall for the longest period of time, for that to actually come to fruition and that be exactly what it was. I mean, Juan Soto, I understand that even apparently Steve Cohen himself, he said that, you know, 15, 20 minutes prior to finding out that we were actually getting Soto, I didn't think we were getting Soto. So I'm not going to fault, I'm not going to say that, okay, it's like we all knew 1,000% right away that Soto was always going to come here. But a lot of us had confidence for a good reason, the same way that we had confidence in these Alonso negotiations. And, you know, we have literally covered how everyone in the media goes about these things for north of 5 years now. This is our 5th year on YouTube, entering our 5th year in that range, because we started in December of 2020 on the platform when Trevor May officially signed with the Mets as the first move under Steve Cohen, if you guys remember. And we went through all the ups and flows and all the highs, all the lows, and what to believe and what to not believe each and every offseason. And we've literally learned a lot on how public negotiations, especially Scott Boras' client public negotiations, work. And we know they're going to drag. And as I said months ago, wouldn't shock me if we got ourselves to February and Alonso hadn't signed yet, and bam, he signs in the first week of February. So this is right on par with what should be expected. And just a preface for going forward next offseason for more Scott Boras clients and just more free agents in general, everybody. Again, patience is a virtue. Can we stop with this Sleepy Stearns nonsense for just a second? It's almost like the guy knows what he's doing. It's almost like him not chomping at the bit to maybe sign that early deal the way that Billy Epler certainly would have, is what separates a guy like David Stearns from others as being a really strong-minded, not only GM, but Pobo for this Mets team. And not only as a Pobo, but as a fan, and separating the two as an important thing. I think Stearns, like Cohen, has a fantastic job and grasp on balancing the two and making sure that one doesn't too overlap from the other. We've already seen how much of those ups and flows and how much it has changed with Steve Cohen since year 1, 2, which I think is absolutely sick. But let's go up here in the chat, folks. We're going to talk more in a second on Jose Iglesias and what is going on with Mr. OMG. I want Mr. OMG back, not just for more Pitbull remixes, as much as Mr. Worldwide is fun. I really need our utility man back. Nick Madrigal does not move the needle for me. I know he's a plus defender. I know he's a former top prospect. I know that he can play all over there in the infield, but it's when I look at the bat-to-ball skills, when I look at the vibes, I look at Jose Iglesias, okay? If it ain't broke, why fix it? If it's a good thing, why we got to ruin this, all right, Jose? Why in God's name are you denying the Mets, bud? Especially if you don't even want multiple years, apparently. That is what we'll touch on here shortly. Reginald, great member. Happy to have you in here as well. Thank you. Thank you. Again, we appreciate all you guys. If you guys haven't already, smash it, like, and subscribe on as you chime in as we break down the latest in Mets land. I'm your host, Tyler Ward. You guys can check out my work not only here on YouTube every single day covering the Mets, to over 30,000 of you amazing Mets fan subscribers, to over 10 million total views here on the platform. But you guys can also check us out on X at the official at the WardyNYM X account that I'm actually going to pull up and show you guys right here, right now. I'm going to show you these accounts quick, and then we will wrap up the show talking a little bit more there on Jose Iglesias, because I think he is a good way to wrap up the show. But a couple things I want to share with each and every one of you are the following that you guys can probably see right now. There you guys go. Bang, bang, boom. Alrighty, guys, and I see a lot of other people are live today. We got Knicks Fan TV. We got my guy, Ibby, CP. You guys know the drill. But if you guys haven't already, please hit that follow button there. So we're now 68,000 followers on X. This is our official, more YouTube-branded X account. I have my personal X account at the WardyNYM. We're roughly 17,000. You guys can follow as well. I tweet on both accounts every single day. But this one, you guys will see more of just brand and channel-related things all throughout the course of the year, including live shows on this account at times throughout the course of the year as well. So be on the lookout for that, as well as what many of you guys know already, but want to reaffirm this. We are now officially on Instagram, everybody. It took a hot minute, mainly just because I want to make sure that I had everything set up in other areas before getting this done. But guys, hit that follow button on Instagram. When you look up NYM Update, I have partnered with my guy Andrew, who is the current account holder there. Him and I are running this account together, and Andrew is just going to be relaying all fun Mets topics, trending topics that you see usually on X and other, accounts every single day that are Mets fan related pages. The only difference is now you're going to see a lot more of my content reposted either from YouTube there, either from X when I tweet out stuff, and also to let you guys know about, short-term reaction things like short-form content over there, and really just further building the brand. We got 22,000 followers over there on Instagram at NYM Update. Hit that follow button if you guys haven't already. We may change the name in a little bit, but for right now, we're going to stick with NYM Update. So shout out to Andrew. He's been an absolute blessing of a help. Shout out to all my friends on X for their help on socials as well, as to keep everything to flow here. But hit those buttons, guys. Maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to get a Wardy reply at 3 a.m. as you guys are sliding the DMs like the freaks that you are. And I'm semi-joking as I say that. But all right, guys, let's hop back in this one. And now let's deep dive all the latest here. And let's get into, as I alluded to, the latest on Jose Iglesias. What is going on with Mr. OMG? Let's just pull up the book here. Just give me 1 second, folks, and then we will go from there. Also, we'll talk about the Mets projected lab before we get out of here, but not yet. I did want to focus on Jose Iglesias first because my guy, Pat Ragazzo. Pat did tweet the following earlier today. Now, for those that don't know, Pat initially reported yesterday that the Mets had offered Jose Iglesias a contract, but he said no on a one-year offer because he's seeking a multi-year offer. Now, for a guy entering his age 35 season, it's hard to envision how multi-year offers and the cards for Jose Iglesias. It sounds like another Scott Boras client that's going to fail to reach the expectations of what he was looking for in the free agent market. But now, when I look at, okay, Pat Ragazzo states the following. Slight correction update. Mets made a one-year contract offer to Jose Iglesias recently, but nothing appears to be close there. Sources say Iglesias is looking for a one-year deal. So that is a true update there, everybody. So Jose is still looking for a one-year deal, but they're, I guess, apart on dollars, which I don't know what the hell we're doing here if that's the case. I don't know how much of a bag Jose Iglesias is looking for. He's not going to get a ridiculous AAV. So I'm going to say the same exact thing that I said about Pete Alonso for the past month and a half now, as I will with Jose Iglesias, folks. Jose Iglesias will return to the Mets. I think he will circle back to the Mets. I think the Mets will part ways with some guys, the Jared Youngs of the world, among others, that they signed in the early goings of the offseasons. And I think when you look at Acuna, a further reason to bring in a guy like Iglesias is to be a true mentor for guys like Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, Jet Williams, you name it. It just makes endless sense. And to see that production in that limited sample size, to see how much the Mets rallied around Mr. OMG outside of Francisco Lindor, how many more reasons do we need to simply say, listen, go out there and go bring back Jose Iglesias? The fact that Jose said no, but is still searching for a one-year contract tells me that unless he doesn't want to be here for whatever reason, we got to get this job done. I know that he probably looks at the Mets and realizes that he's in a more limited role, so maybe that's the turnoff, and that's okay. If he wants to sign elsewhere for a more guaranteed everyday role, it's fine. He's not going to get it as a guaranteed thing with the Mets. He'd have to earn it kind of again. But what he would also earn is not only the fans entrusting on having Mr. OMG back filled with excitement, but also on him really rallying around as a key part of this clubhouse, a part of this organization. That OMG sign and that rally went so far, much farther than we could have ever fathomed, and that was something special. I'm not saying we need the OMG sign in 2025, but I do think we certainly wouldn't hurt by having a reunion of Jose Iglesias. So, guys, before I let you go, and thank you guys so much for smashing that like and subscribe on throughout a live show in case you guys haven't already. Before I let you go, I'm going to show you this really, really cool clip that I saw earlier today here on X. I'm going to share with each and every one of you. And I will preface for headphones, the volume is going to be loud. This is from Animating Sports, who do a fantastic job on making little animated videos for people in the New York sports talking head scene. They did it for, I saw my guys Jolly and Jerry, Mark and James, Evan, and everyone there at the Fan. And they did it for me too, which was really cool. Just reactions to the Pete Alonso signing news. And they used my clip of what I was reacting to when Alonso hit his massive home run off of Devin Williams. Look at this, guys. And again, it's going to be loud, so apologies on the volume in advance. Oh my God! There is no way! There is no way! There is no way! So I'm going to play that again, but mute the volume because it's obnoxious, and I completely understand why there's a contingent of fans that can't stand that shit because I can't control my emotions in those playoff games. But yeah, I understand it's cringy as all hell. I don't blame you for feeling that way. But guys, look at how to a T this entire thing looks, from the background photos, the frames, which is just insane, how good quality, like that photo that they took off of Twitter, probably this that they found the JPEG for, same thing with this New York Post article, the Piazza outline of the jersey, the fact that they had the jersey too, like not fully fitting the frame, I think is hilarious, and then my WardyNYM logo in the background, everything about this is just absolutely hilarious, and I can't thank them enough at Animating Sports for chefing this up. I was not expecting this. I never asked for this, but I thought this was very cool. And yes, Jack, shout out BetUS as always for all your sports betting needs. We love them here. But yeah, wow, just really, really cool stuff. Love the animation. Hope that they do more stuff like this with me in the future because I'm absolutely in favor of it, especially for post-game reactions, among other things. But guys, that is going to conclude our live show tonight. I want to thank you all so much once more for chiming in live in a replay. If you guys enjoyed the live show, please let us know your key takeaways on the comments out of here. Smash a like and subscribe button for my replay viewers. Let us know your biggest takeaway, the comments down below. And guys, as I said it already, and I'll say it once more, once we hit 32,000 subscribers, we are doing another Mets jersey giveaway of whatever player that you currently want on the roster. So again, guys, get in on the action. Subscribe to the platform today. What's sure to be a fantastic 2025 year here on the WardyNYM platform. This is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks. Have a great one.